Hi everyone and welcome to Season 2, Episode 5 of Reputation Rebuild at Aberdeen with me, the United City FM. Welcome along. So we've just been through a January transfer window. I have made a couple of upgrades to my defence, which I'm pretty pleased about. Today, in the Scottish Premiership, we also play a game against Dunfermline. So let's get into it. Welcome back, everybody. So we've got a lot to get through, so we're not going to hang about. We're going to go straight into the schedule and just look at what we've been up to in the last few matches through the January window. And you can see that it was a mixed bag, to be honest. We drew against Motherwell in the first cup game that we had, and then we went into the replay and actually lost to them, unfortunately, 1-0. It wasn't a priority for me, but it's still disappointing to go out in those kinds of circumstances. We also had two all draws, one against Livingston and one against St Mirren in the Scottish Premiership. But we also beat Motherwell in the league as well. So we played Motherwell 3 times in the space of 5 games. Yeah, did we come out on top? Not particularly, but we just about scraped the points that we needed in the Premiership. So overall, it has been very, very hit and miss, and we do need to hit the road running again when we get into this early form in February. Look at all the games coming up in February. 2 against Rangers, 1 against Celtic, a couple in the Euro Cup number 2, which I really don't want to play at all, but there we go, and a bunch of others as well. So lots coming up in that respect. Let's just see how that recent form has impacted our Scottish Premiership position, and it kind of hasn't too much. We still have that really big gap opening up. We've now got a 5-point gap between us and 4th place, but look at the amount of games played. We've got 4 games in hand over Hibernian specifically, and it's a 10-point gap to 5th place, and we've got 2 games in hand over them. So we are in a really fantastic position when looking backwards. Looking forwards and above us, we're still about hanging in there. We're 3 points behind Celtic, having played the same amount of games. And we are 5 points behind Rangers, but we've got 2 games in hand over them as well. So our season is simply going to come down to the games that we play against those 2 teams. Can we take any points off them at all? Or are they going to do what they did to us last season and pretty much win every time that we play and pull away from us over the course of the season? That's pretty much what our season will end up looking like, depending on whether we can take those points or not. So that's for the future. For today, just before we get playing our match against Dunfermline, who currently sit bottom of the table, so we really, really need to be winning this particular match, don't we? Before we do that, though, let's go and check out those improvements that were made in the transfer window. So we actually bought one player in for £300,000 from Kilmarnock. We bought Stuart Finlay, and he's a central defender now. 26 years old, so that's a decent age. And there are some big gaps in his mental attributes, unfortunately. That determination is a bit of a problem. But this is the best guy I could find for this particular season to come in and do a job for us. And the job that he's doing for us will be much more clear when we go into the pre-match tactics. And I show you some of the players that have come out of the team, because there are 2 players that have come out of our defence. And the other one, if you remember, we've had a player on loan for the last season and a half, and he's back. So we will check that out in a second when we go into the pre-match tactics. But let's just talk about Finlay for a second. The reason that he's in is 1, because of his age. 2, you can see that he has got some good attributes in the position that we want him to play in, that kind of no-nonsense central defender type. His physicals are not too bad, but that 16 tackling, 16 heading, the marking's not brilliant, but the anticipation and bravery, plus a bit of jumping reach and strength, all make for a very decent central defender at this level of football, I would suggest, and is a definite upgrade on what we've had in this position. So that is the only transfer that we made, but let's go and see what impact it's had on our defence and also figure out what we're going to be doing for today's match against Dunfermline. So yes, finally, other than Finlay, we do have another recruit for the defence, and it is Roland Hernandez, who has been on loan at Atalanta for the last season and a half, I think it is. Well, 2 seasons for them because of where their season runs, but for us it's the last season and a half since I took over, and he is now back in the squad, and this is great timing, and this will be the same for both of these positions as to why it's good that these 2 guys have come into the defence. So if we take a look at Roland Hernandez, not Roland? Why am I calling Roland? It's Ronald Hernandez. I bet you're all screaming at the monitor telling me that it was Ronald and not Roland. Anyway, Ronald Hernandez, he comes in. The reason that it's good is he's really good crossing ability, which is fantastic. The rest of his technicals are average at best, but he has got some good mentals in terms of determination, off the ball, work rate, which is really important. But then his physicals are pretty decent compared to what we've seen in the Scottish Premier League at times as well. Decent pace and acceleration, decent agility. The rest of it is okay. But this guy is much, much better than what we had in one key aspect. And it's the same if we just go and remind ourselves about Finlay as well, if we take a look at him. So Finlay is replacing Considine. And if we go and have a look at Considine, who's dropped to the bench, you'll see immediately the first thing is Considine is 34 years old and he's coming to the end of his time with us. And it's the attributes that are the biggest issue. I cannot have a guy in my side anymore that is 34 years old and his physicals are dropping off as dramatically as these are. His pace is 6 and his acceleration is 8. And that, as a central defender now, I need more pace at the back. Some of his attributes in the mentals are much better than Finlay's are, but ultimately this is the level of football we're playing at and you've got to make a compromise somewhere. And so this is the best player I could find to come in and replace Considine, so that's what I've done. So he has made up for it in some of these other mental and technical attributes, but his physicals are dying. He has been playing pretty well, so he will still rotate in and around the side a little bit for the rest of the season, but Finlay comes and replaces him. And the second player that we need to look at, having seen Hernandez come in with some decent enough physicals and that good crossing ability, is Shay Logan, who is also leaving in the coming summer, and again is 34 years old. And you can see that his attributes are dipping again in the physicals quite specifically, but everywhere else he's been decent for us, but he hasn't been amazing for us because he's not an amazing player. And I think we've got a better one in Hernandez. So those 2 players, one bought in and one bought back from loan, finally come in and just shore up that central defence. Now today, they're both going to play and Hernandez hasn't played for us yet. So it could completely disrupt this back 4 for the first game or so. But today's a good game for them to come in because we're playing bottom of the table Dunfermline. So let's see how we get on. The only other personnel news that we need to talk about is unfortunately McCrory, who is pretty much our best player by a country mile, is unfortunately injured for a couple of days. Won't be out for long, but you can see it doesn't return to full training for 3 days, so cannot play today. So Goss comes and sits in that holding midfield role. So all of that means that for today's match against Dunfermline in the Scottish Premiership, we have Lewis in goal, Hernandez at right back, Demir at left back, Simpson and Finlay in central defence, Goss, Ferguson and Vertonen in central midfield, Hedges on the right, Middleton on the left and Nisbet up top, with a bench of Considine, Ramsey, McGeoch, Campbell, McLennan, Ross and Delap. So let's get into today's game and see what happens. After the recent amount of inconsistent form, I thought it was a good idea just to be kind of a little bit friendly with the players today. So I opened up my arms, I outstretched the arms and I said to them, if we play our game, we'll win and you're very capable of it. I seem to have got a reasonable response. We're away from home, so that's always a little bit more tricky, isn't it? But as I said, in the build-up to the match, they are bottom of the league and we do need to be dominating this type of game if we can. Now, McCrory being out of that midfield is a bit of a problem. A slightly different defence, could be a little bit of a problem whilst they get used to it, but I still expect us to properly give this a good go and give them a bit of a pasting ultimately. But it's in the first 30 seconds, we're still in the first 30 seconds, it has been all Dunfermline so far, but finally we win it in the left fullback position with Demir, and Middleton takes over a really brilliant through ball, and Kevin Nisbet at 1 minute gets through on goal and slots it right underneath the keeper. A bullet shot on the floor, right under the keeper as he tries to dive down for it. Middleton, brilliantly off that left wing, cuts it in through the defence to Nisbet, takes it in his stride and powers the ball home. And we do go 1-0 up after 1 minute, and couldn't have asked for a better start after what looked a little bit hairy for that 30-second period where Dunfermline had a lot of the ball and seemed to be pushing forward themselves. But that's done the world of good, really, to settle us down. Dunfermline in a 4-4-2 formation means that we're going to hopefully win that midfield battle more often than not, which will be really, really helpful to us. If we can keep their two strikers quiet, then we're in for a good run here, but that might be a little bit tricky here and there. So a ball over the top, and it is one of their strikers, and immediately, oh, Kev, you've got to learn just not to talk. If you talk about them, they do something, and they have. They've put it over the top from a free kick, and Simpson it was that went completely to sleep, and they go 1-1 after 29 minutes. That is so unfortunate, just as I was talking about their front line as well. There we go, 1-1 at the moment. We can see that in terms of the statistics for the match, we are dominating the game. 6 shots at goal, 2 on target, 2 and 1 for them. Their XG is ridiculous, and they've only pretty much had that one shot that they could have got anything from, and they did. So we've 62% possession as well. So we have absolutely dominated that first half. And then they kind of sucker punched us a little bit just because I was talking about them at the time, which is just utter madness, isn't it? Anyway, there's not much we can do about that now. So we're going to go back in. What we're going to do? I don't want to dig them out too much. I think we will have to, a little bit though, point the finger and say I'm not happy with the performance out there. That has motivated them, which is positive. So we will go straight back out. And of course, we go into the shouts and we fire them up for the beginning of the second half, which is what I try and do as much as I can just to get them back on the front foot and focused on the game. Hedges takes over from Hernandez and then gives the ball away. And Hernandez is out of position briefly. So there was a big space in that right fullback area for us. But they go long and we win it in our defensive unit anyway. Midfield takeover. And again, oh, this time it's disallowed. But again, it was a fantastic through ball through that central midfield into Nisbet up top. And Virtanen just is offside. Nisbet is just offside, sorry, from the Virtanen pass. And it doesn't quite count for us. But that is the danger point for us so far today. It hasn't been from wide positions as much as it's been threading those balls through in midfield. And we're at 68 minutes and it's gone very quiet all of a sudden. You can see that we're still absolutely having the best of all of the statistics for the match. But we haven't had as many highlights as I'd like. So we're going to have to go in and make a couple of personnel changes just to see if we can reinvigorate them again. Hedges, I must say, this is the guy that I'm next going to have to get rid of out on my side, I think. He's just not doing it for me. I mean, he's got 2 goals and 3 assists in 21 appearances from the right side of midfield, which is all right. But you can see, again, his attributes, his physical attributes are not good enough. If he had better physicals and maybe just a smidge more crossing, there's a decent player here cutting in off that left-hand side and getting those shots away, etc. But those physicals really let him down. So we're going to have to do something about that, I think, in the summer transfer window that will come soon. Just because I think there are better options that we could find. But he'll come out today and McLennan goes in and replaces him. We're going to have to take out one of these 2 central midfielders. We're going to take Virtanen out and put Campbell in. And what are we going to do at the back here? We've got a couple of people that are slightly low on fitness, a little bit on conditioning, should I say. But we've also got Middleton playing really well, but also really struggling. I think we're going to take him out and protect him because he is doing really well for us this season. And I don't want to ruin him. So Middleton comes out for the rest of the game. The defence are going to have to figure themselves out a little bit. And as soon as we go back in, again, we'll go into the shouts and we'll demand more from them. And we'll just move from the positive to the attacking mentality as well. And just see if we can unlock something here. 10 minutes to go. We kind of need these points, really. These are the games, as I say, we should absolutely be doing something with. And we've just lost the ball there. Nisbet went up for a challenge and lost out. And it's Dunfermline that come back. But Finlay, good-headed clearance out from the back. So he's settling in reasonably well. But then we have a miscommunication down the left-hand side and lose the ball again. And it's again Dunfermline that come back at us. We hold them up enough, but they still maintain possession, play decent ball in the middle of the park. And then they go over the top. And again, it's Simpson that again went to sleep. But this time, the goalkeeper comes out and closes down the gap and parries it out for a corner kick. But again, Simpson not having the best of days in the defence today. Corner comes in, we get it partially cleared, but again it's Dunfermline coming back at us, and they've moved it wide left, but Ross eventually comes across and breaks out down the play, and we regain possession, and a throw in down the right hand side starts another highlight, and it's Hernandez into McLennan. McLennan goes off on a mazy run down the right hand side. Ferguson dropped deep. Oh, it was a decent ball in the end, but Nisbet couldn't quite get on the end of it in the best way that he should I say. And it goes over the top of the bar. It looks like we're going to get a really disappointing 1-1 draw. And that's not quite good enough. Now, I mean, I could have brought Delap on halfway through the game and pushed 2 up top, but I felt that we were in control in the statistics for the match, and we needed just a little bit of good fortune. And this is the way we're playing all season long. What on earth has just happened there? A long ball over the top, and again, for the 4th time in the game, one of our defenders just goes to sleep. I think it's offside this time. We will give him the benefit of the doubt. But I think Finlay this time really fell asleep. I'm hoping there's an offside decision coming here, because if not, it's the fullback that lets him go, really. And he is onside. Oh, no, we're going to lose the game in the last minute against the bottom side in the league. Now, I did suggest that potentially today our defence might find it a little bit challenging because of the new faces in it, but it was still the best game to come in and put them in because of who we were playing. Now, you can see that a couple of them did play pretty well. Both Finlay and Hernandez did reasonably well. Demir got a 7, but it was him that switched off in that left fullback position to let the player through in the last minute of the game to score the goal. Simpson was a real low point today, though, and he's usually pretty decent. Other than that, central midfield-wise, Campbell and Ferguson and the likes of Vertonen, who went off, didn't have a good game, and neither did our wide men today, and that was a bit of a problem. Obviously, Nisbet got a goal and missed and had a disallowed goal as well, so he played well, but a real mixed bag. So you sort out the defence a little bit, and some of them play well, and then your midfield and your wide men don't show up. One day, we're going to get this team properly right, where all of them show up at the same time and go on a bit of a run together. And when they do that, I think we are improving this squad. But just for today, that didn't work quite as well as I wanted it to. Oh dear. Oh well, that's going to lose us ground a little bit on Celtic and Rangers, isn't it? And rightly so. We should not have been losing to the bottom side in the league, but we did. And you could see really plainly, clearly that it was those defensive laps that did it. But anyway, we're going to have to move on from here. All of the stats for the game suggested we dominated it, but we did not dominate the scoreline, and we lost. So we have indeed lost ground on Rangers specifically, who played today. And they're still 2 games ahead of us in the schedule, but they're now 8 points clear, of us in the league. And so that is a bit of a blow. They have increased their lead. Celtic haven't played this particular weekend so far. this midweek, should I say. We're on a Wednesday evening. So they've now got a game in hand over us and are 3 points clear. So that gap is just beginning to open up, unless at some point this season we can take a few points away from them ourselves. And that's going to be really tricky to do. But yeah, we're going to have to dust ourselves off of that from that particular match. That is a really poor game. If we go and have a look at the bottom of the table, Dunfermline are sitting 4 points behind St Johnstone at the bottom of the table, and 3 of those points have just been won against us. So they really have been struggling this season, and that is a really fairly dreadful performance by us. But anyway, let's move on. Let's go back into the schedule and figure out what we've got coming up next episode. You can see again, down here in April, this last game of the season is at 33 games and it splits off. And then we play another 5 matches against the other members of the top 6 if we're finishing in there, which we will do. So there's another 5 games after that to come just to finish off the season. But between now and the end of the season, we've got quite a lot coming up. So what we're going to do is for the next 2 episodes, we are going to play a couple of games against Rangers and Celtic. So we're going to come back at the end of February and play the Rangers match away from home. And we're going to come back after that in the following episode at the end of March and play the Celtic match. Those are the 2 episodes that we'll do in the concluding the first part of the season. And then when it breaks again, we'll probably play them again, because it's so important that we get something from these matches. But this inconsistent run of form, having been fairly brilliant through the likes of November and December, January and now leading into February, have been fairly ordinary so far, and we have to change that as soon as possible. St Mirren's the next game up for me. I will play through the next few weeks, including that Euro Cup 2 game, and we'll see where we're up to by the time we get to Rangers. Of course, before that game against Rangers, we do have to play Celtic and Rangers before that as well. So tricky times coming up. Anyway, come and join me for the next episode and we'll figure out where we're up to at that point. And we'll play that game away from home against the mighty Rangers. Until then, thank you for joining me today. Really disappointing result, wasn't it? But there we go. That happens sometimes. Subscribe to the channel anyway, and we'll see if we can get better results next time. Click that like button on this particular episode. That'll help me get seen by lots more people. If you're not coming and join me on my Twitter feed or my Discord, or you haven't gone and checked out the article that I wrote on Patreon about why I do YouTube stuff and how you could support me in that, then go and check all of those things out for me. Let me know what you think about them. But until next time, take care of yourselves. I'll see you very soon. Bye for now.